The Fujifilm X-T50 is one of those cameras that you really just have to try yourself to understand. It's feature-packed for a compact camera, but the $14.99 price point is a major turnoff for some people, especially since the X-T5 can be had for just a couple of $100 more. When I first learned about this camera, I thought the same thing that many others did. Why not just buy an X-T5? But in today's video, I'm going to discuss how using Fuji's new Mini X-T5 has made me a believer in this full-featured portable powerhouse with a few caveats that we're going to discuss along the way. Hey everyone, thank you as always for joining me. My name's Pete, I'm a portrait photographer based in New York, and today we're talking all about the new Fujifilm X-T50 camera. Now, before we get started, do me a favor, please gently press that like button. There's no need to smash it. Drop me a comment below, and if you like this video and my other videos, please subscribe to the channel while you're here. Now, the Fujifilm X-T50 is Fuji's latest compact mirrorless camera, and it is the direct replacement for the X-T30. And in truth, it is a scaled-down version of the X-T5 that's quite a bit more compact, but it's missing some key features. It does, however, share many of the X-T5 specs, the most notable being the X-Trans 5 40-megapixel sensor, the X-T5's autofocus system, and Fuji's beloved film simulations. The X-T50 also has IBIS, although the X-T5 system is slightly more advanced and offers one more stop of stabilization. There's some other key differences, but more on those later. And when I got my hands on the X-T50, thank you to my friends at B&H, I was ready to write it off as a family and vacation camera for people who just like to shoot in auto mode. But after using it for a number of photo shoots, I began to realize that the little X-T50 is so much more than it seems, and I have to say that Fujifilm has done a tremendous job making this particular camera. First thing you'll notice about the X-T50 is how tiny it is. Fuji also ditched the squared off edges of older models in favor of a more rounded look to the camera, which also makes it appear and feel a little smaller. But in spite of this, the X-T50 has a surprisingly comfortable grip. And even with a larger lens attached, the camera still feels good and has good balance. For concert photography, I was really happy with how fun it was to use without feeling small or cheap. The retro design and the dials make this the perfect camera for manual shooting as well, and also for the auto lovers. Dialing in the ISO via one of the command dials was simple enough, since this particular camera does not have a dedicated ISO dial. The craftsmanship overall is excellent. It feels solid, it feels machined nicely, and it feels really nice for a tiny prosumer camera. The film simulation dial, which is controversial, has also grown on me. I enjoy being able to quickly scroll to my favorite film simulations without needing to press any buttons. Now, I understand why Fuji made this choice in the design, since the camera is geared more towards hobbyists and advanced amateurs who want to shoot film simulations in JPEG, but I feel like that real estate on the camera would have been much better served still with an ISO dial. One gripe that I've had with Fujifilm in general is the lack of consistency from one camera to another in terms of the menu and the button layout. And this makes it more complicated than it needs to be if you go from one model to a different model or buy another model as a backup for your system. Also missing on the X-T50 is a still/movie switch. The movie mode has to be accessed via the drive mode button. You can, however, map a button to start movie recording, but really nothing beats the toggle switch like you find on the T5 and other cameras. The T50 also has a two-way tilt screen instead of a three-way tilt screen like the X-T5. Other notable differences are the lack of a second card slot, no D-pad, boo, and a low-resolution EVF, which does take away from the overall shooting experience. The X-T50 also uses Fujifilm's smaller battery, battery, but you can't fault them for this because this camera is smaller. The newer version of the battery, however, does last longer than the legacy batteries, so that's a good thing. All right, so let's talk about what I consider the most important part of this little camera, and that's the sensor. I've been a huge fan of the 40 megapixel sensor since Fuji introduced it, and I continue to be impressed with the image quality now from this new X-T50 camera. The images are insanely detailed. They have an excellent amount of dynamic range for those like me who are shooting in RAW most of the time and want the latitude for editing. The files are just beautiful, and honestly, I love the images that I've created with this camera, especially when using my favorite film simulations. Since day one, if you've watched my channel, you know that I've loved the images I've created with the X-T5, and now the X-T50 gives me the same huge choice of lenses without sacrificing any of the image quality in a smaller package. The fact that this camera can make images like this is really incredible. I mean, if you're a pro Fujifilm X shooter, the T50 really can be a good backup and a lot of fun at the same time. So when it comes to image quality, well done, Fujifilm. The X-T50 autofocus is on par with the X-T5. It's good, but it's not going to knock the socks off. It's not going to be as good as a high-end Canon or Sony camera, so don't expect it to be. Now, I found that the AF did struggle most with a backlit situation where it had a lot of difficulty locking on my subject. But in most normal situations, the AF was pretty snappy and fast, and it did what I wanted to do. Keep in mind that I did not shoot sports with this camera, so my testing is based on portraiture, street photography, kids photos, and concert photography. Now, although I did use face and eye detect, I found that for me the best way to use the camera was to choose a single focusing point, set it to AFS, and just manually aim the point where I wanted it. This way, if I was shooting 2 or 3 people, but shooting wide open, which I love to do, I could easily choose the person I wanted in focus without having to press a button and scroll from one face to another if I had it in face detect. I also like this method because I was able to pinpoint an area of my frame very easily without relying on the camera to figure out what or where I want to focus, especially if I had a person in the frame, but I wanted to focus on something other than their face. So for all of you worrywarts, don't worry about the autofocus, and certainly don't worry about the autofocus drama with Fujifilm because it's going to be good for most applications. And while you're at it, stop watching and commenting on any of the Fujifilm troll videos that are spreading wrong information and negativity about the entire brand, because the people making those videos don't actually care about educating you or helping you. They just want clickbait. All right, well, there's a lot more I could say about the X-T50. As I mentioned, it's one of those cameras you really need to try to understand. On paper, it does have excellent specs, but the price point is certainly a barrier to entry because you can, as I said, have an X-T5 for just a few $100s more. And although the X-T50 does miss some important features that a pro would need, like the dual card slots, it's so much more than just an updated X-T30. The X-T50 really stands on its own, and I have no doubt that those of you who decide to purchase this camera are going to quickly fall in love with it like I did. Well, that's all I have for you today. I hope that you found this review helpful, and if you did, please use one of my links below if you're going to purchase this or anything else. Special thanks to B&H Photo in New York for loaning me an X-T50 for review. Go ahead and give them some love, and also check out my other sponsors below while you're there in the comments. Here's wishing you an amazing day, everyone. Go out and take some awesome photos, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.